Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
1, 2. Check me out right here, yo.
Yo, the sun don't shine forever, but as long as it's here, then we might as well shine together. Better now than never. Business.
Welcome to the Bob Sullivan Show here on latenightsportsradio.com. If you'd like to join the conversation, the phone number is 585-633-7487. I'm joined here in part one of hour number one by Brian Keating of KOCO in Oklahoma City. Brian, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. It's been a long day, but we had LeBron in town, so everything's been good.
Well, that's is that a good or a bad thing having LeBron in town? Is he kind of is he a nuisance to cover, or is he, it's not too bad to cover him?
No, he's not too bad to cover. I mean, LeBron's big enough where he's just honest anymore. And so, I think that's what we hope for as reporters. You want to go in there and ask him questions, and LeBron's so big that he's honest. You talk to some of the Thunder guys, and they're not honest all the time. They kind of give you the team spiel, and LeBron just doesn't care a whole lot about that anymore. So from that standpoint, it's great. And from the standpoint of being a media member, and we get to watch Kevin and Russ play every night, 82 nights a year, and that's spectacular. But you see LeBron a lot. He's on the East Coast. He's playing in the Eastern Conference. So he only plays the Thunder twice a year. Only one of those is in Oklahoma City. He didn't play in Oklahoma City last year because he was hurt, and then Kevin's been hurt. So that part of it was awesome to be in the arena. And, ESPN, I think they ranked the top 50 players of all time. They had Russ, Kevin, and LeBron all in the top 50. So, we're watching three of the best 5 players in the world and three of the best 50 players ever, if you pay attention to what ESPN says.
Well, I try not to all the time, but I don't I don't disagree with that. There was a story on 538.com, which is, for a lot of people know what this is, but it's a heavily numbers based website, and it's pretty much saying that it was not expected for either Westbrook to compete or to be better than Durant. Numbers, feeling. Do you feel he is better than Durant, or what do you feel as far as Westbrook?
Man, we have this conversation. I'll rephrase that. We've begun to have this conversation, and it actually be a real conversation. We started to ask that question. Now, I don't know that he's better than Durant because the things that Kevin can do are so unique at the end of the game. And I think Kevin is the best player in basketball with the ball in his hand if you've got 5 seconds to go and you need somebody to hit a shot. And so from that standpoint, I think he's got Westbrook beat. But Westbrook's game has evolved so much over the last year. He's an incredible passer. He's second in the league in assists. He can obviously score. He led the league in scoring last year. I would still take Kevin if you made me pick one of them. But the fact that it's even a conversation these days is psycho. And I know the people are really into analytics and numbers and all those things. And the analytics love Russell because he does everything. But if you make me pick one of them, I'm picking Kevin. He's so efficient. And then late in the game in the fourth quarter, there's nobody I want with the ball. Not in the whole league. Not Steph Curry, LeBron, Russ, anybody.
Yeah, as far as with Westbrook, I feel like if there's one huge downfall to him, it's his decision making. But you could fault just about any point guard other than maybe, even Chris Paul at times. But at times there's Westbrook's decision making where he'll just run down and jack up a three. Is questionable at times, but sometimes I think even if you look at the numbers, a lot of those times when he's taking those threes and jacking up those bad shots is when Durant's not in the game. I do think it's insane that this is a conversation right now, but it's not it's not a stupid conversation, which you would have thought it would have been a couple years ago, because Westbrook, I feel, is comparable to LeBron and the things he can do, just a lot of things, he'd be kind of comparable to a 5-tool player in baseball, where he can just do everything really well. And that's the only reason I would say Westbrook is better. But I feel like he's kind of a Pippen to Durant's Jordan, where maybe Pippen could do a lot more things than Jordan, but Jordan did, he was just all, the best player around. It's hard to explain, but that's just the way things work, kind of.
No, you're right. I mean, Jordan obviously had that it, and I think Kevin in a lot of ways has that kind of it, where he senses a moment, and he's been really good through the course of his career late in the game. I mean, Russell, and I think you've been right over a number of years about Russell's decision-making, and that's always been the knock, right? Sometimes takes some tough shots and bad shots. He's much better. He doesn't turn it over nearly as much anymore. His decision-making has certainly improved, and he's one of the best passers in the league now. He still takes some ill-advised shots. I think where you can get rushed is if you really piss him off and you can get in his head, then he will make poor decisions because, he takes everything so personal, to a fault at times, really, and that's when you can get Russ. But when Russ is calm and he plays under control, he can be the best player in the world on a whole lot of nights, and he is the best player in the world. And I think, really, it is crazy. If you made me vote for MVP this year behind Steph Curry, I think I would vote Russ number 2. I really do. I think I would vote Russell Westbrook number 2 for MVP this year. But I would still take Kevin if you made me pick.
The hope when the Heat and Thunder first made the finals was, okay, we're going to have years of Durant versus LeBron in the finals, and we haven't gotten that. But it's not like, at least we've gotten it once, which is great. I mean, it's not going to be another Bird Magic or anything, but at least we didn't get it, when it was too late. Like if we got a Kobe LeBron finals now, or if we got Jordan versus Magic. At least I feel like we got it kind of, Durant was a little early in his career. But I don't think we can really slam the door shut on us not, seeing, say Durant goes to the. I'm sorry, I don't want to hurt your feelings.
No, it's okay. No. I mean, look,
he goes to the Warriors.
There's certainly going to be a lot of conversations.
If they go to the Warriors, I mean, that's pretty much setting up for a Cavs-Warriors finals every year for 3 years. Sure. And then you could get that kind of matchup. And, I mean, it wouldn't be quite the same as Magic and Larry, but do you feel like, this rivalry, there's still kind of a rivalry there? Is there no rivalry there? Do they hate each other? Do they not hate each other? Where does this stand?
No, I don't think they hate each other. I mean, one, they don't play each other enough. I think we want them to really have this rivalry that it's just not there. Now, they like to play each other, and they like to play, and really LeBron's far better in the matchup than Kevin is. LeBron, this is a great stat. Since the Thunder won Game 1 of the NBA Finals, LeBron's 10-1 against Kevin Durant and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, it's a remarkable statistic. He's owned them. So I don't think there's a whole lot of rivalry between Kevin and LeBron. They just don't play enough. If they played more often, if they're in the same conference, if they always played for high stakes, they just don't. I mean, the Thunder's biggest rivals are the Clippers, and they played the Grizzlies a ton in the playoffs, and they've gotten the best of both of them more often than not. But those are their two biggest rivals. Those are the people that hate each other. It's not really LeBron and Kevin. They just don't play enough. And I'd love to see them play some epic finals games. You're right. When Kevin got there, he was 23, Russell Westbrook was 22 and James Harden was 23. They were so young, they really didn't know what they were doing, and they were in over their head, even though they were in every game in that series. LeBron, it was his turn with Dwayne Wade and all those guys. Kevin and those guys were so young, and they haven't been able to get back. So LeBron's been in the finals 5 straight times, and I just don't see the rivalry that I think we all want to be there. It's just not quite.
Oh, and I mean, it's almost. I mean, the Bulls versus LeBron is more so the rivalry that LeBron has right now. But that being said, the Bulls have never beaten. I mean, it's almost like Ewing versus Jordan. The Knicks never beat Jordan. I mean, they beat the Bulls, but they never beat Jordan. I mean, it's like these. I mean, the Bulls. I don't know how revenge based you are, but I'm pretty revenge based. Yeah, very extremely. Believe it or not, it is very nice to see the Bulls on kind of the Knicks side of things when it comes to with LeBron killing them every year. Every year they're eliminated by LeBron, and that's what I felt with the Knicks. With Jordan, it was just
right.
And so it's nice to see that for a change where the Bulls fans, Chicago get to feel that pain.
Well, yeah, and certainly the Cavs fans finally might get a little bit of revenge on those Bulls teams. That I mean, it's one of the best plays and one of my favorite plays ever to see. I mean, Michael Jordan over Craig Elo and the fist pump. So maybe Cavs fans can find a little solace in that. I think you're right.
Yeah. The ones that actually were there for that versus the ones that are
that's true. That's true.
That are Cavs fans.
And maybe just the folks in Cleveland.
Yeah. Do you find it funny? I'll see this from time to time. I don't know how often you see it, but when somebody's like, "Oh yeah, you weren't a Thunder fan before they were good," it's like, okay, well, they've been in Oklahoma City since what was it, 2009 that they went to Oklahoma City?
2009, yeah. This is year 8.
Year 8, and we're all already like, if you're, if you were rooting for the Mavericks 6 years ago. Well, if you were living in Oklahoma City, and then all of a sudden an NBA franchise comes to your city, what are you to do? You just have to keep, can you not root for the team that's in your town now? Are you not allowed to do that? Can you not change teams, or what are the rules on this?
No, you have to change teams, I think, or at least I can tell you this: everyone in Oklahoma City is a big Thunder fan, and I mean literally everyone. You'll find a few pocket fans who say, "I was a Bulls fan back in the day, and I'm still a Bulls fan, and I'm going to ride with them forever." What you find way more of is, "I'm a huge Thunder fan now, but I still have this feeling about the Bulls, or I still have this feeling about the Lakers or the Celtics that I had when I was a kid because we didn't have a team, and I'm a big fan of that team, but if these two teams played, I would root for the Thunder because that's my home." That's what you get around here way more than anything else, because you're right. I mean, we didn't have an NBA team. What are the teams? I'm 37 years old. What are the teams people root for? When I was a kid, everybody rooted for the Bulls or the Lakers or the Celtics. And so I think that's what you find. And even in the arena tonight, a ton of LeBron jerseys. The Lakers get that, and the Celtics get that more than anybody else. But LeBron, he flips the needle, man. He makes it go. And so a lot of LeBron jerseys in the arena today. I think a lot of people from out of town made the trip. That's what we saw a lot of people doing that too.
Do you think, looking at LeBron, do you get a sense that he's, is he? Sometimes I just get the feeling that he's disingenuous at times. And Kobe, I feel like there's times where he's disingenuous too. Like, a lot of his career I felt was disingenuous. That's not going to be popular, but I feel like LeBron, like when Kobe went through the whole slapping the player in the face, when he would take the jumper and then slap the player in the face.
Yeah.
It was just, that was a basketball shot. Well, LeBron has a lot more of those moments than Kobe did, where it's not something on the floor, but he's like, crab dribble, or this, that, or the other.
No, yeah.
Do you get annoyed by? I mean, you get to see him once a year, but
right. I watch a lot, but I don't. But I think I'm weird in that. I don't hate LeBron like a lot of people do. And a lot of people loathe LeBron, and I think a lot of people will never give LeBron the benefit of the doubt because how he handled the situation going from Cleveland to Miami. People just will never forgive him for that. And this day and age, we're so overcovered, overanalyzed, over-mediated, over everything about these players that it's really easy to nitpick if you want to. And I think people do. And I'm not one of them, but I find more and more that I'm in the minority. I don't mind LeBron. I think he wants everyone to like him. I think he's probably a good dude, and from everything I've seen, he's a good dude. He doesn't get in trouble, doesn't do a lot of those things, but he does do a few things here and there that if you don't like him, he gives you reasons to further that. But I'm not really like that. I like LeBron. He's one of the best players I'm ever going to see, and so I don't mind him. And since he's a guy that doesn't get in trouble, I'm cool with that.
Do you think that's a lot of the reason? What do you think the reason is why there's not a lot of? Is it just because he hasn't won a ring yet? Why there's not a lot of hate one way or the other for Durant? Because I've never heard anybody that's been like, oh man, I hate Kevin Durant. It's either like, yeah, he's cool. He's really good. There's not way too much love. There's not way too much hate. Everybody's just kind of like, it's kind of like Durant's personality, where it's like, I'm just going to kind of chill, and that's kind of everybody's personality with Durant.
I think that's right, and I mean we get that around here too. Russell is the guy that's the fiery guy that people around here don't like him at times just because his personality is kind of one way or the other. And Kevin, much more even keel. He's like a sweet little kid, Kevin. I mean, really. And I think that's the way we still see him in a lot of ways. He tried the KD is not nice deal, and he's still you just want to pinch his little cheeks, Kevin Durant, sometimes. And I think that's why. I just think he's a good dude, too. And he's never been polarizing in any way. He's another guy that's never gotten in trouble. I think if Kevin doesn't start to really compete and get close to NBA championships and win them, I think the criticism will come because he's, 27, 28? I think that's going to come because he'll be the best player not to have one.
Yeah,
and I think that's coming. But he's been a model citizen up to this point in his career, and I think people want to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I think it would actually take for really people to get kind of pissed off at him is if he went to Golden State and say they don't win a championship in the first year, and it's like, oh, well, Durant's not about winning. He just wanted to come here for the ride, and that's when people would turn on him. I feel like he's kind of turned on the media, the national media, a little bit, which I completely do not disagree with why he's done that, because the national media, looking at like the people he's gone after, I don't have a problem with that at all. Stephen A. Smith, give me a break. You're going after a guy that's a made-up personality, basically. So
no, that's right.
I mean, it's him going after Stephen A. Smith, which I get is kind of like when Bill O'Reilly would go after Stephen Colbert on, it's just like, going after a character, somebody who thinks they're actually somebody. But, and I like Stephen Colbert, but Kevin Durant, like, I feel like that's what it would, like, if he stays in Oklahoma City and tries to do it with him, Russ, Cantor, if they try to do it and say, like, they just can't, I guess there's some blame to him, but I think he can fall back on if he stays in Oklahoma City. A lot of the media can blame them for the Harden thing. Not all of them, but there's going to be a lot of pushed off blame towards the Harden thing. And then there's the other factor of if he goes to a Golden State and they don't win, he's going to get the finger pointed at him. That's the only time I think the finger really gets pointed at him for choking it.
No, you might be right about that. And if you remember, it wasn't that long ago. When LeBron was a kid, when he was 18, 19, 20, when he was going to the finals for the first time against the Spurs, people didn't dislike him.
No.
They really liked LeBron. What turned for LeBron was that he went to Miami and it was a spectacle and people thought he was kind of copping out. And that's when it turned for LeBron. So I think you're right. If Kevin did decide to move on, especially if he went to the champs, if he did that, I think you would cease to see Kevin in the same way that you see him now. As he wouldn't be quite the genuine character and the kid that you think he is right now if he did that. I'm not sure I think that's going to happen. I think there's a much better chance Kevin and Russell both re-sign than Kevin goes to play with the Warriors. But I've maintained that for a long time. But I mean, who knows? I don't know what Kevin's going to do. The money's going to be there forever. It's just kind of what he wants his career to be.
I'm going to ruin my own show, but I have a guest coming on later where I pose the question, what do you think is most likely? You know, Durant and Westbrook, you know, eventually both sign together in L.A. Durant goes to the Warriors and West. I mean, it was a really complicated question, but he ultimately thought that Jabari Davis ultimately thought that Durant would sign back for 1 year and then see what Russ does and then make his choice. Do you see that being likely?
Yeah, I think that's the most likely scenario is that Kevin, he'll sign a 2-year deal with an opt-out after next year, and that'll really put the Thunder in a tough spot. It'll put Kevin up with Russell at the same time, with Serge Ibaka at the same time, and with Steven Adams at the same time. I mean, it'll be a really difficult spot for Sam Presti. And I think, everybody really pointed to this year and all the moves that they had to make to keep Kevin not being a free agent year. I think next year really there'll be a lot more focus on it because the salary cap goes up astronomically in 2 years. And so that's why everybody's going to sign and try to be a free agent in 18 instead of this year.
Well, do you think Russ and Durant are enough on the same page for that? You know, like they're buddies, but are they good enough buddies where, you know, they could spend an entire career together, whether it be with the Thunder or another team?
I think they could. And the reason I think that, now, you know, you can argue fit and the way they play and all those things. You can argue a lot of basketball things, but I think the thing for me that makes them both different than a lot of guys in the league, especially guys who are as good as they are, is they both are basketball junkie nerds. They don't, you know, Russ has the hobby with the fashion stuff, but they live in the gym. You know, that's what they know, that both of those guys, and they know each other, are going to work just as hard as the other. And I think they respect that about each other. And so I think they like playing with each other. Now, some of the basketball stuff and the way that they mix, I think Russell's gotten much better at playing. Again, I don't have any idea, but you'll notice that so many more of the rumors these days are about Kevin and Russell playing together, whether it be LA, or maybe they can sign both in New York. I mean, you start to hear more of the rumor mill say they both want to stay together and play together. So that makes me say, yeah, I think they could play together their whole career.
A couple more questions before I let you get out of here. I'm kind of parents and probably a lot of people would call me a bad basketball coach for this, but I coach freshman B team here in Omaha, at a high school here in Omaha. And one of my better players, I told, hey, conserve some energy on defense. And, you know, from time to time you can take plays off here and there. We're going to play a zone. And then my second best player is like, okay, I need you all on defense, and then I need you, 75% of the time on offense. Do you feel like, and I feel like with Durant, he kind of, he can take plays off on defense, but then you just tell Russ, okay, go 100 miles an hour at all times, or go 100% at all times, even though it'd probably be best for the team if they both went about, 75, 80% at all times. For Durant to conserve down to like 70, just have Russ go 100. What do you think as far as what do you think Billy Donovan is telling them, and what do you think he's done to manage when Russ is going 100 miles a minute, and it just sometimes it takes from the team? What do you think Donovan has done as far as that mentality goes?
I don't think Donovan's done a whole lot to try to tell those guys to back off. I can imagine this conversation. I mean, really, I'm trying to imagine Billy Donovan and Russell. Russell Westbrook comes into Billy Donovan's office. Billy says, "Hey, Russ, I need you to sit down. Let's talk about how we're going to play tonight." And he says, "Russ, I need you to play at like 70% all the time." And Russell's looking at him like, "Are you crazy?" Yeah. Russell only knows one way to go, and sometimes it's too fast. But that's the only way he knows how to play.
Actually, I disagree with you. I think Russ would be like, "Okay, I can kind of get on board with that." And then as soon as he gets into the game, it's just, everything's gone. Everything that was said is out of his mind.
Okay, now I think you're right about that. I mean, I think that's probably true. In Russell's mind, he's like, "Okay, coach, I want to do what you want me to do." But he gets into the game, and it's just the adrenaline. It's like the All-Star game. We're talking a week ago. My favorite play in the All-Star game, it's my favorite play in the All-Star game because they spent 30 minutes before the game talking about Kobe, and it was this intro video, and all the players said this. So they tip off, and the West gets the ball, and everybody's waiting for somebody to throw it to Kobe, right? Well, Russell gets the ball, and no one's guarding him, and Kobe's kind of out there looking for the ball, and Russell was like, "Well, screw that. If they're not going to guard me, I'm just going to go dunk," Yeah. He looks at Kobe and says, "Hey, man, it's not just about you. It's about me." And that's how Russell thinks all the time. That was my favorite play. That's the only way Russ knows how to play. It's the only way.
Well, that's kind of like how I am when I'm playing tennis, and I did this yesterday. It'll be like, okay, let's just go have a friendly game of tennis. Let's just go have some fun. And then somebody hits a lob shot, and I'm 6'4", and I'm ready. I'm looking all over I'm looking for somebody to hit. And so it's just big mistake, and I'm not aiming to get the ball just in the court. I'm aiming to hurt somebody. And I feel like that's because you're trying to make that person pay for making that mistake. And, obviously, the way it set up was what Ross, hey, let's try to kind of, overload to Kobe's side. And Russ is like, all right, see you later, guys. Big gulps, huh? Exactly right. See you later. That's how Russ went about it. And, I mean, he's just got a mind of his own. And it's like, we laugh about it and we kind of joke about it. It's kind of funny, but I mean, it's just Russ being Russ. It's almost like Manny Ramirez, Manny being Manny.
It is, but I'll say this for Russ, and he can. It's easy to give him a hard time for that, and he's plenty deserving of some criticism when it comes to that. But he was a guy out of high school that wasn't recruited very much, and he was a guy coming out in the draft.
He almost came to Creighton.
Is that right?
Yeah, he almost came to Creighton. He had a visit, like he was almost committed to Creighton. Like it was like one of his top 2 or 3 choices.
Wow, I didn't know that. I mean, but he's not this super highly recruited guy. He's had to make himself into a superstar, and part of that is that Russ thinks it's all about him, and the other part is he works like crazy. But no, he's fun to watch play 82 nights a year. I'll tell you that.
Well, plus playoffs. But
yeah, right. Plus the playoffs.
But Brian, before I let you get out of here, can I have you tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, the television, all that good stuff?
Cool. Yeah, we do a lot of good stuff, Thunder stuff, on KOCO.com. That's a TV station that I work for here in Oklahoma City. On Twitter, it's KOCO Keating. Tweeting a lot of Thunder stuff, and you told me we one of these days we're going to talk some college football because, being in Oklahoma City, it is college football haven. So, we do a lot of college football stuff, OU, OSU, plenty of Thunder stuff. So, a lot of ways to find me, and we do a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, we'll have to do a lead up into the, I believe it's the 2023-24 series between Nebraska and Oklahoma. We'll have to do a week-by-week preview into that game.
All right. Yeah, that'll be good. People around here fired up to see Nebraska again.
What was the last, those games with Nate Hibble, I mean, Hibble, White, the Big 12 era of Nebraska, Oklahoma, that's what I remember because of how old I am. I'm only 25, but which is kind of sad. But you know, we got at least I got a 1 versus 2 matchup between Nebraska.
No, when I was a kid growing up in Oklahoma City, man, that was it. That was Friday after Thanksgiving, and that's what everybody wanted to see. Or Friday or Saturday, I don't know. I think it's Friday after Thanksgiving. And I went to a bunch of those in the cold, man, watching Nebraska and Oklahoma get it done at Memorial Stadium. Barry Switzer and Tom Osborne. Yeah, that was fun stuff when I was a kid.
Yeah, Osborne was the choker at that point.
He was. He hadn't won yet, but he got that turned around. Yeah,
after Bill McCartney and Switzer were gone. That's when he got it turned around. Once all the good coaches were out of the Big 12, he got it figured out.
He finally got the best of Miami.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I appreciate you coming on. I truly do, and we'll talk again soon. I'll send you a message on Twitter or something like that and get you back on the show here.
Sounds good, man. Had a good time.
All right, take it easy, and we'll be right back here with Pete Pikowski from BostonBias.com here on the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com.
Second to keep breathing in the moment before it's gone. You never know when others lost until you find just what it costs to be wrong. I wonder if you think of me passing by, you think you see me coming. I wonder if you pull me in, kiss me just one time again. Coming and the nights will keep on going till they're tired, falling fast asleep and as they dream of ghosts of beats filled with desire. The chance of life is all around, a chance to take is always found. Writing on the lullabies, I'm alone and living life. Do you remember? Lost or found, love lying by your side. In the final hours of night, do you remember? Lost or found, love lying by
Baby, you're a mystery. Tell me what's a girl gotta do? Looking at the history doesn't seem to give any clue. Just when I think I understand it all, you seem to unravel some more. Ooh, la, 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 ooh, I never know nobody like you. Ooh, la, 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 ooh, now, now I know you're not an enigma. Ooh, la, la, ooh, na, 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 oh. Yeah, you keep me guessing on confessing now, well, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you. Baby, you're an enigma. Baby, you're a riddle. I'm caught up in the middle of you. I'm trying to think bigger, but I can't seem to figure it through. I wanna make it better, but now I'm scared of looking a fool. Oh, baby, no, I've never been very good at playing it cool. Just when I think I understand it all, I find I know nothing at all. I never know nobody like you. Ooh, na, 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 ooh, now, now I know you're an enigma. Ooh, na, 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 oh. Yeah, you keep me guessing, I'm confessing now, well, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you. Baby, you're an enigma. Ooh, baby, you're an enigma. Yeah, you keep me guessing, I'm confessing now, well, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you. Baby, you're an enigma. Baby, you're an enigma. Baby, you're an enigma. Yeah, you keep me guessing, I'm confessing now, well, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you.
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Welcome back to Sullivan Show here on latenightsportsradio.com. I am joined here in hour number 1, part 2, by Pete Pakowski of BiasBostonSports.com. Pete, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing all right. Pretty uneventful trade deadline for the Bruins, and other teams in Boston aren't doing that well, but I think we'll all be hanging in there once the spring comes around.
I feel like that should be the motto. Like when you get into Boston, like the city limit should be, we're hanging in there. Like I feel like that should be, when you get to Nebraska, it's all the good life, which is not true. But when you get into Boston, it should be, we're hanging in there.
I mean, everyone's angry all the time. You got terrible traffic, but I guess we can say that our sports teams are pretty good. So, like I said, I think everyone's going to be, hanging in there once the Red Sox come around. Hopefully the Celtics have a deep run. We'll see how everything goes.
How excited are you, or unexcited are you about seeing Kung Fu Panda show up for spring training?
I am. I can't. Words can't even describe how unexcited I am about it. I don't know if you saw the picture. It made their way rounds away Twitter this morning and this afternoon. He came in and his throwing and his gut was hanging out, and people were saying that maybe he lost 20 pounds or something like that coming into spring training, and it looks like he gained 20 pounds. So between him and Hanley Ramirez, it should be a eventful hot corner thing going on that we have right now. Two guys that are 250 pounds. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's. I don't think it'll compete, but the last hot, corner infielders I was truly excited about was Prince Fielder and Miguel Cabrera. As far as weight,
yeah,
goes.
I mean they rival him right now. Yeah, totally. I mean Hanley. He can hit, and we saw that last year in April. He had 10 home runs. Panda's never really been a power hitter, playing at a power position at third. So, I mean, everyone expects, to see this big third baseman. He has a good mitt. Hopefully be able to use that wall in left field. See if you can. It's a short fence out there, just like Yankee Stadium in right field. So hopefully, you can just hit a pop-up and he'll get a home run. And, maybe Panda could hit 20 home runs, something like that. But I don't think that's the case. I just don't think that he's more of a double power kind of guy. It's not going to work. Especially, I think that they're probably going to see if they can trade him if Dave Dombrowski hasn't done so already.
Yeah, Don Brow did okay, pretty well in Detroit. A little bit different philosophy from the previous regime, and as far as the Red Sox go, the previous two. Do you trust him? With the moves he's made in the offseason, do you not trust him, or are you just I don't really care about the front office right now?
Well, I mean, Dave Dombrowski, I think as soon as he came in here, he did more than Ben Cherington did. So I mean that's a positive, definitely. He brought in David Price, who he knew from Detroit already. A huge contract, richest ever, but I mean. It's David Price is one of the best pitchers in baseball, excluding the playoffs. I hear a lot of people talk about the argument of him not being a good playoff pitcher, but I mean, counter argument to that is that you need to get there first. So hopefully, and then he's running Craig Kimbrell, who's arguably one of the best closers in baseball. So he set out everything that he wanted to do in this off season, aside from unloading Hanley and possibly Panda. So I mean, if they have a hot spring, April, May, hopefully their value will go up, and somehow the Red Sox will find a way to dump them to a team that maybe missed out on someone like Chris Davis or Hayward or something like that.
Looking at 04, 07, 13. Do you see any similarities between this team and series, or obviously you're coming off a couple horrible seasons, and right. After coming off the season with Bobby Valentine, you won the World Series. Are you expecting any positivity off of last year?
Well, in regards to the first question, I really don't see any similarities really between these two teams. I mean, you have, it's just a. Pablo Sandoval, like we said, came in today, and he's overweight. You expect a guy that had such a down year to try and, prove to the front office that he was the right signing. You have a guy like Hanley Ramirez showing up without a glove. There's so many different question marks with this team right now. I think it's going to be difficult to find a lot of positivity early. They have a lot of good players: Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts. There's some guys in the rotation: Eduardo Rodriguez, Brian Johnson, that you could be, positive about maybe. I think it's going to be a tough season for them. They're not going to win a World Series like they did in 2013. That team, I think, was made of players that wanted to compete, wanted to go. So you can
go. Looking at the, as far as, is there any guys down in this farm system, AAA, AA, that you could see forward this year for the Red Sox, or is there anything to be positive about the farm system?
Well, I think so, yeah. I mean, you have Yohan Moncada, who was ranked, I think, number 3 by Baseball America as a top prospect in baseball. So, I mean, that's something to look forward to. At first, he was playing second base, which is obviously where Dustin Pedroia plays. Maybe, if they could find a way to put them both in the lineup at some point. I don't think Yohan Moncada is going to be up here anytime soon. I think he's 19, 20 years old. So other than him, I mean, there's a couple guys down in the farm system that they could be looking at towards the future. I don't think any of them are really going to make an impact this year. But I think after the Craig Kimbrell trade, they were ranked right around, I know they're in the top 5. Before the Kimbrell trade, they were ranked number 1. So, I mean, they have one of the best farm systems in baseball. If they're, competing at any level come the trade deadline this year, I mean, I think we could see a guy like Blake Swihart, one of those other top 10 guys or so, potentially be moved for maybe a Sonny Gray type of pitcher, a solid number 2 that really could solidify the starting rotation and potentially give them a deep run in the playoffs this season.
I want to keep you in mind, I created a player on MLB The Show 15, and he's now with the Red Sox, and we've been bounced out of the playoffs 3 years in a row, and we're in about, I think, the year 2021 or so. We got to the World Series. We didn't win it, though, but I will say this. Sweetheart, and I don't know if Chet Leister is a real person, but he's also become a nice piece, a part of our program with the Red Sox right now.
Yeah, I've never heard of Chet Leister. He might be a fake guy.
Yeah, I think he has to be fake.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on to the Celtics. Looking at them, they didn't make a move at the trade deadline, which. I feel like a lot of people, the messing with the team's camaraderie, their chemistry is kind of overrated. But do you think that? Do you think that? Was there something out there that you think they really should have done? And I don't really feel like there was anything out there that they really needed to do that would have got them over the top. Like when the Knicks traded, I'm a Knicks fan. When the Knicks traded for Carmelo, like that team was going to finish 6th either way. It wasn't like that team was going to go any higher than 6th. So why not wait till the off season, and why not call Melo's bluff that he wouldn't come there either way? He wouldn't take a hometown discount or something like that. Why not call his bluff? Do you feel like the Celtics are kind of in the same position? Like if they make a trade, they're probably going to finish second or third in the East either way. So what's the point of making the trade? How do you feel about the trade deadline for the Celtics?
Yeah, I mean, I agree to an extent. I don't think that they're not going to catch Cleveland. I'm not sure anyone is, not even Toronto. They seem to be reeling at this point too. No one's going to catch Cleveland. But I think, like you were saying, chemistry is completely overrated with this team. So the idea that they didn't want to break up this team because they thought that they were good together or something like that, I don't really think that that's the case either. I've been hearing a lot that, there's guys that there's some mystery team, there's some mystery deal that was going to happen, and names that I've heard have been Jahlil Okafor, Jimmy Butler, James Harden, all these guys that, could potentially completely alter a franchise. So if that type of deal was available, which I'm not 100% it was, I don't probably think it was, but if that type of deal was available, I think that they definitely should have done it. It's a no-brainer. And I know people regard, the Nets pick as being this thing that's untouchable, but the fact is right now, I mean, the Nets I think they're in 4th right now for the worst record in the NBA. Phoenix is on a free fall. Minnesota has a chance to overtake them. They could finish as high as 5 right now. So, I mean, I think that chemistry is overrated. If there was something available out there, I would obviously take it. We heard the names Al Horford, Dwight Howard. I think the price for Horford was obviously pretty high, and the chances of re-signing him were probably pretty low. But a guy like Dwight Howard, I mean, that was the guy that I wanted all along. If you're not going to have to give up much, I know the Celtics have just a plethora of picks right now. If they had to give up their pick, the Dallas pick, and a guy like Jared Sullinger or Kelly Olynyk, I would have done that deal in a second because their interior defense is just, I mean, it's terrible right now. We saw it again tonight. You know, if they could just get a guy that can stay down low, that's not floating around, that's a deal that I would make.
See, my thing with, Dwight Howard, I feel like when the story with him was, okay, well, he's not going to – I feel like the trade that would have best suited him would have been to go to Atlanta, where he's, Horford goes to the Celtics, somebody goes to Houston, but ultimately Howard winds up in Atlanta, where the same things that were beneficial to him in Orlando, where he's just surrounded by, all these shooters, and I feel like that would have been the best fit for him was Atlanta, where, you're just surrounded by a bunch of shooters, throw it in, kick it out, and he plays a little bit. I feel like that would have been his best fit. I didn't feel like Boston was a great fit. I mean, it would have probably stuck. They would have made it work because Stevens is smart and Ainge is smart, but I don't think that was the best fit for him. But looking at Boston, the Butler Harden thing was brought up at the trade deadline. Do you see something for one of those two in the offseason happening? And also, one last thing. It's not necessarily the worst thing to have the Nets pick be, fourth or fifth or third. Have them the third ranking team going into the lottery. Because you don't want the best odds because that doesn't always work out in your favor. Second, third, fourth, you're in good position to get that first overall pick. And that's really all you want this year is Ben Simmons. Anybody else is really kind of, who cares?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've heard Brandon Ingram, Chris Dunn, who plays now in Providence. There's a bunch of, relatively decent guys in the draft right now. I don't really think that any of them would completely alter a franchise like the potential of Ben Simmons. But just kind of talking about the Nets pick too and just drafts in general, I'm not really a big fan of, drafting a guy and completely relying on a 18, 19, 20-year-old kid to alter your franchise. Nowadays that's really the only way, unless you're in LA or in Miami, even in Dallas to an extent, unless you're one of those cities where players want to flock and go there and build these super teams. Unless you're one of those big cities, you're not going to get free agents. We saw Danny Ainge when he made the Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen trades. That's the only way really it's a city like Boston is going to be able to, get superstars to come here. Like you said, Ben Simmons is probably the only guy right now. But still, I mean, I'm a little hesitant to, like I said, bring in upper echelon type player that's 18, 19 years old that, he might work out, but he might also, completely crash and burn. So it's a necessary evil, I guess, when you're a city like Boston. But in regards to James Harden, I hope that something like that happens. It's one of the only, options I think the Celtics have. They're in good position right now. I mean, they have so many different draft picks, but, a lot of good young players that could potentially be of value to a team like Houston. I mean, Avery Bradley type of guy that's underpaid, great shooter, still young. They might be interested in a guy like that. Marcus Smart, same thing. I hope that they can pull a trade off like that, but I'm not really that optimistic about it just because, I mean, aside from the 2007 trade, Danny really hasn't showed us that much. So, I mean, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. I wish I could read Danny Ainge's mind right now, but, I mean, I think he's all over the place, so it'll be interesting offseason.
Do you think there's too much trust in Danny Ainge?
I don't know. I mean, I was actually talking about this with our writers over at Bias Boston. I mean, half of us really like what he's done. We think that, he's a genius when it comes to trades. And other half think, because he makes these big blockbuster trades like he did with Brooklyn and like he did with, Minnesota when they got Kevin Garnett. I mean, the most impactful trades that he's made has been 5-8 years ago. He really hasn't made that many good trades as of late. But, I mean, he played with the Celtics when Larry Bird was here. He's made a couple good trades. So I think that, people probably trust him a little bit too much, but I don't think that he's going anywhere anytime soon.
Do you think say that Ainge puts something together where you can get, no, let's not even say a hard, just a couple of nice pieces that, can go head to head with LeBron. I don't even want to throw any names out there, but say Ainge can do that. Do you think Stevens is the right coach to go head to head against a team with LeBron on it? And do you think it even matters who the coach is with the Celtics if Tyronn Lue is the head coach for the Cavs during that time?
I mean, I like what Stevens has done in his 2-3 years that he's been here. He was replacing an overrated coach in my opinion in Doc Rivers, but a great coach nonetheless. What he's been able to come in and implement his college style of offense and defense has been great. He's one of the up-and-coming coaches in the league, and it seems like younger potential superstar players want to play for him. I know last year when they were struggling, and even the year before when they were tanking, there was a lot of talk about potentially him going back to Butler and then bringing in a more established guy in the NBA. I like what Ainge is. I like what Brad Stevens has done a lot. Hopefully he works out. I think he will too, just because I think he really relates to his players well. You have a younger guy like Stevens, I think these guys relate to him better. Even to bring it to a baseball reference, like a Joe Madden type of guy, where there's not a lot of interaction, but he just gets it, and I think the players get it too. He runs a fun locker room, and they're all about winning. And even during the NBA All-Star Weekend, Isaiah Thomas was saying that guys were coming up to him and asking what it was like to play in Boston, if it was fun. And I think that's something that they really haven't had in forever, really. A never big all-star guy has ever come to Boston. So I think what Brad Stevens is doing is great, and he's probably trending in the right direction.
Well, on that note, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break here on the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com. Come back, we'll be back with Pete, talk some more NBA, Boston Celtics, and we might even talk how I've never met talk to a person on my show from Boston that I didn't like. So we'll be back here, Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com.
Maybe I could offer up an
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Welcome back to the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com. I'm joined again here in hour number 2 by Pete Pikowski of BiasBostonSports.com. Pete, Celtics-wise, are we, is there, what's the, ceiling for this team right now, in your opinion?
Right now, I'd probably say the 3rd seed. I mean, I think the 2 seed's completely out of question with Toronto. Even if they are somehow able to get into the 2 seed, I think that Toronto's a much superior team going into the playoffs. Maybe the Eastern Conference Finals. If they drop down to the 4 seed, though, they have to play Cleveland in the first round. The second round. I think that they'll probably lose to them. A rematch of last season. Maybe 5-6 games. They're obviously an improved team, but I don't think that they're going to be enough to potentially knock off Cleveland and go to the finals and play Golden State or San Antonio, whoever is going to make it out from the West.
Would it be the worst thing in the world if they made it to the finals and had to play Golden State?
I'd like to see them in the finals, I guess. No matter who they play, I think they're going to get blown out. I think it's a good experience, though, probably. They've had a tendency of being able to beat, the worst teams in the league. They've lost to Brooklyn twice. They've lost to the Lakers once. So that's 3 wins right there that might be able to propel them, into the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference. I think they're still really a young team, a learning, developing type of team. So, if they can, get some experience in the playoffs, that would be great for guys like Avery Bradley, Isaiah Thomas, Marcus Smart. You can just go down the list and name, guys that are all under 25, 26 years old that, could be with this team for the next 5, 6, 7 years. Maybe at some point, maybe they can become like a Cleveland, but I still think that they're missing a couple pieces, starting with a big guy down low.
How many more years do you think LeBron had? I think we've already kind of started to see the downfall of LeBron, of where, he's not shooting a great percentage this year. He didn't even shoot, he had to carry the team in the finals, but he shot a horrible percentage in the finals from 3,
right.
from 2, and whatnot. How many more years do you think LeBron can really carry a team through the playoffs? I think we're down to a year, maybe 2 at the most.
Yeah, maybe I'll give him 3 or 4, just because he's such a dominating player. And as long as, if his physicality stays the same, if he's, he's obviously not going to shrink, and I don't think his body style is going to get much different with age. He seems to be a guy that takes good care of himself. So, he's a bulldozer. He's 280 pounds. He's like a linebacker in the NFL. So, as long as he can stay there physically, I think that he's going to be able to, flourish a little bit more than a guy that relies more on his legs, like a Ray Allen type of guy, or more of a pure shooter. Just because of his play style, he's pretty physical. I don't think that that's really going to, go down with age, contrary to, what most people think. Maybe 3, 4 years, but I don't think that he's going to stick around like Kobe's doing, really. I see him more, in a Larry Bird kind of thing where he goes out on top. I know, injuries destroyed Larry Bird's career, but with LeBron, we haven't seen, some major injury that has completely destroyed an entire season for him. So, until he gets something like that, it's hard to, see when this train is finally going to end.
I know there was a lot of bitterness towards Ray Allen when he left to go join Miami. Right now, what former Boston athlete is there the most bitterness towards?
I'm trying to think.
Is there one? I know you guys hate anybody and everybody, like 90% of the year. But I'm curious. I know there was a lot of hate towards Ray Allen. I can't feel like there is anybody right now that you could really point out. Is there anybody that I'm missing?
I mean, the only guy I can really think of, and I mean, he's not really even that hated, is Aqib Talib with the Patriots. When he went to Denver, I mean, that was, he completely went to the evil empire. I guess that's us now, though. But yeah, I mean, there's a huge population of people that still like him here. Just because of his demeanor and the way he plays. Obviously he came out during the playoffs a couple times, and that soured a lot of people's taste for him. But I don't really think that there's a lot of animosity towards him. After the Super Bowl, maybe a little bit more after the way he played in his antics. Like, I really can't think of a guy right now that was playing for a Boston team that shipped out, and now people absolutely hate him. You have guys like PK Subban with the Montreal Canadiens, LeBron, Peyton Manning. But I mean, I think the only reason that everyone hates those guys is because they're so good and they threaten, the awesomeness of every single Boston sports team that's usually so dominant. But yeah, I really can't think of one guy that was on a Boston team that now everyone hates.
Boston feeling towards Peyton Manning finally getting accused of cheating. Is it like the biggest celebration ever right now, or are you guys? Oh, it's about time that this guy.
Well, I mean, I think the debate with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady.
What is it right now?
Well, the debate with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, I'm not 100% sure. After Brady won his fourth Super Bowl last year, I think the debate is over. I mean, you will have Peyton Manning supporters that will point to Deflategate, Spygate, all these different types of things that is trying to throw the legitimacy of Tom Brady being, a top 2 quarterback to ever play the game. Peyton Manning's a great regular season quarterback. You can't take that away from him. All the records that he's been able to amass, and now that he has 2 Super Bowls, that debate, I guess, has been opened up a little bit more, nationally, not necessarily here. And there were still some people, though, that thought that Peyton Manning was comparable to Tom Brady before last year. And after what he did last year, even though he had a great defense, that fourth quarter in the Super Bowl was one of the greatest performances I've ever seen. And I think that really sealed the case for the Peyton Manning-Tom Brady debate.
Okay. This next thing, I'm going to kind of compare Brady a little bit to Rondo. This actually might piss off a lot of Boston people. I'm going to try it anyway. And if you just Garnett, Pierce, and Ray Allen, where he kind of had the keys to just not to screw up. But, Cassell was kind of the, in my opinion, Rondo gets a lot more credit than he deserves for that championship. When Cassell credit, much the same that Cassell than Kenny Smith gets on NBA on TNT for the Rockets championships. Is that okay? First off, before we go any further, is that fair? Pete? Did you hear all that? Did I cut out? Did I cut out again?
Yeah, you did. But I mean, I think I got the gist of it.
Okay, but do you agree that Cassell deserves a lot more of the credit than Rondo does for the championship with the Celtics? Much the way the championship credit than Kenny Smith for the Rockets.
Yeah, I mean, I think so, because Rondo, I think, was still an up-and-coming player on the team. He didn't need to lead them at all, and they had a fallback option with Sam Cassell. Yeah, I mean, Rondo was the 4th, 5th option on that team, and I think it kind of showed, once they left, Rondo couldn't step up and be the number 1 option on the Celtics, and that's ultimately probably what got him traded.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so my thing with Rondo, and so Rondo got his time to kind of grow into himself, where it was like, where Rondo got the credit for being one of the best point guards in the NBA, a Darren Williams when he was with the Jazz or a Chris Paul when he was with the Hornets had to kind of prove themselves with doing their own thing, not with, some of the best veterans in the NBA.
Sure.
Again, is that fair?
Yeah, totally. I think 100% fair.
Okay, so as far as my thing with Rondo and Brady is Brady got the time to kind of, he was a sixth round pick and kind of deservedly so out of Michigan. He didn't really 100% prove himself. He deserved, he deserved to be kind of a sixth round pick at that point. But he also got the, he came in as, backup to Bledsoe, who was a number 1 overall pick at Washington State. He got the job, and then he earned the job. But he got the time to grow and become the quarterback he is today, much the way Rondo kind of became the point guard he is. I'm not saying, Brady's 3 championships, okay, maybe one. The first 2 for sure, I feel Brady can attribute to his supporting cast. The third one and then the fourth one. And everything since the third one, I feel like was all Brady. But he got the time to grow much the way Rondo did. You agree with that premise you have right there?
I think so. I mean, he definitely had cushion in the early 2000s with those great defenses that the Patriots had. I think to an extent, though, just the point guard position and the quarterback position, the point guard wants to pass the ball to, Paul Pierce or Kevin Garnett or Ray Allen. They can chuck up as many shots as they want. I think the quarterback really doesn't have that luxury. You still need to make the throws. Even with a handoff, you can fumble it. I think there's a ton of, more pressure on a quarterback. I mean, if you don't have a good quarterback in this league, we've seen really, where a team is, and it's at the bottom of the league. I think that you can kind of afford to not have a good point guard, and, you're not going to be one of the worst teams in the NBA, like you would, if you didn't have a quarterback. I understand what you're saying, and there's definitely like a comparison right there that I never even thought about. But I think that, Tom Brady, he has a lot of heart. He did even when he wasn't, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, if not the best quarterback. But yeah, I totally see the comparison right there. I think it's pretty fair too.
Did I just blow your mind? Not a lot of people would make that comparison, but did I just blow your mind on that one?
A little bit, because as soon as you made the Rondo and Tom Brady comparisons, I was about ready to fight you. But it makes a bunch of sense to me. So,
because Rondo wouldn't be worthy. Rondo coming out of Kentucky would not be worthy of a number 1 overall pick, like a top 10 NBA draft pick would not have been worthy of it. And I feel like Brady, same thing. But you look at Rondo compared to a Chris Paul. When you redraft him, you probably would have drafted Rondo 3rd overall, and you probably would have drafted Chris Paul 1st overall. But probably in the same spot. Actually, correction, you would not draft Chris Paul in the same spot because what went ahead of him was Andrew Bogut and Williams from Charlotte. But you would not go that route. But then you look at Peyton Manning, who goes number 1 overall. You would not redraft him number 2 or number 3 or in the 6th round or anything. But if you're redrafting a Rondo and a Brady, they definitely go in the top 3 if you have the choice.
Yeah, but I think with Brady too. No one, I saw this on the 30 for 30 that they did on him. You really can't, look at a guy's heart, and I think that Brady, he has, as much, confidence in the entire NFL. Rondo kind of exudes the same thing, and I'm kicking myself, and I'm sure the Celtics are too. They had, they were going to do a Rondo for Chris Paul swap, a Rondo for Russell Westbrook swap, and those never came to fruition. But it's crazy seeing how much Rondo has dropped off. In contrast, Brady hasn't dropped off at all, and he's almost 40 years old. Eating that avocado ice cream and going to the hyperbolic chamber and all those crazy things that he's doing. It's obviously working, but I mean, I wonder how long Brady has left.
Do you, with Rondo, what do you think it was that caused the drop off? Do you think it's just, I mean, a lot of his career is Brady reinvented himself. Granted, he got Randy Moss to reinvent himself. However, you look at Rondo, he never really embraced learning how to shoot a jumper. Granted, I don't think his jumper was all that horrible. He just, whenever he has a wide open lane, he just sits on. He's selfishly unselfish. Brady reinvented himself and became a different player. Do you think that's the case with Rondo? If he had reinvented himself to become a tad bit more selfish, and that he would have, made himself a better player, and now he's just kind of insignificant because of the way he is selfishly unselfish?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a while, too, when he was coming, he's never been a good shooter. When he was coming out of Kentucky, people were saying that he couldn't shoot free throws because his hands were too big and he was going to have surgery to make his fingers smaller and all this other crazy stuff. You can take as many jumpers you want in the gym, and if you're not a good shooter, I guess you're just not a good shooter. And if you want to make that kind of argument, I think that Rajon Rondo is probably your best example. But yeah, Brady, he completely reinvented himself. And I think, we were talking before, in the early years, he really didn't have to do that much. And then in, 2007, 2008, and, 2014, and then this year, I mean, it's all on him. And I think that Rajon Rondo will completely crack under the pressure. And we're even seeing that now a little bit, now that he's with Sacramento. And, he has Cousins as a cushion. He doesn't need to, shoot and stuff like that. So it's a good situation for him out there.
Well, and the funny thing is like, when you hear the Rondo thing where it's like, okay, what do you need if we bring you into Sacramento? He's like, just get me a shooter, and they go get Marco Bellinelli, which is fine. And, it sounds great and everything, but it's like, why don't you just go learn how to shoot? Like, I know all these stupid, nerdy, glasses-oriented GMs in the NBA hate the mid-range jumper, but if Rondo had a jumper from the elbow, or he could just take a dribble in and hit it, it would just, I don't think people understand what wonders it could do for the teams that he's had around him. Like with Garnett and Pierce and Ray Allen at the end of their run, what could have done if he had just a little bit of a jumper or a modicum of wanting to take a jumper.
Yeah, I completely agree too. And I don't understand. I mean, we saw, in the playoffs and during big games, nationally televised games, he take the shots you and make the shots. So I don't understand. I don't know if he's not trying or if it's just he likes the spotlight. There's something off with Rondo. I think that he's not a good teammate. He doesn't act the right way towards refs. He doesn't act the right way towards coaches. He's, like I said, I just don't think he's a good teammate. He's not really a good fit for a team like the Celtics now, that, just have such great chemistry. If you put a cancerous guy like that, it's not a good fit for teams. And it's probably why he's thriving out there in Sacramento, because he has his buddy DeMarcus Cousins, who's the exact same way.
Yeah, I was actually hoping that the Kings would sign Monte Ellis, because I just thought it would be Rondo,
a little
Monte
trio.
I just wanted them to sign. And the fact that the NBA did not do the association on NBA TV with the Kings was just that's just bad marketing. That's like not doing a bachelor with some chick, okay, not a bachelor. It'd be like doing a movie about fat chicks without Anna Nicole Smith before she had her own. But that's the thing is, like, Rondo is so selfishly unselfish. I know the Celtics' whole plan was, hey, we're gonna keep Garnett, Pierce, and Allen together, and then once Perkins and Rondo's heads get too big, we'll get them out of here. But I don't think they really. Do you think the love for Rondo and Perkins would have been as much as it was when they first had that plan with Ainge?
I don't know. I mean, I think Perkins was a huge piece to the the potential downfalls and the eventual downfalls that happened with the Celtics following when they won the championship. When they traded Perkins for Jeff Green, if they kept Kendrick Perkins, there's a good chance that they would have won another championship. But I mean, they were, like you were saying, they were two big hotheads. I liked both of the players at the times that they're here, but as soon as they went to other markets and the chemistry in the clubhouse wasn't as good, we saw them completely explode. So with those two types of guys, I think you need a good solid clubhouse, just to back them up. But they can't be leaders on a team, and we've seen that in the past couple of years.
As far as who do you think? Who is the person that you thought was going to be a star from that one championship with that crew? Was it a Leon Poe? Because I know a lot of people loved Leon Poe in that championship run. Who was somebody that you thought was going to be a star or was going to be really good that just flamed out really quickly after that run, or during the Doc Rivers era that you thought was going to be good that kind of flamed out?
I mean, honestly, not really anyone. I mean, aside from Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen, they had a bunch of complementary veteran players that kind of just meshed well together. Eddie House, he was a great three-point shooter, but I think that was probably one of the best guys that they had. James Posey, he was pretty good. I'm trying to think of other players. There wasn't really, that one guy that stuck out to me, and I was like, wow, if he went to another team, he could be a potential number one, number two option. The biggest guy was probably Rondo, like we've talked about. But yeah, I just don't think that there was that one guy that once those guys retired could take the reins for the Celtics or any other team that they decided to play for.
What happens first? Doc Rivers gets to the Western Conference Finals, or the Celtics get to the Eastern Conference Finals?
It's a good one. I want to say the Celtics just because that East is, I mean, it's nothing to write home about at all. I mean, aside from Cleveland, everything else is pretty much out of grabs. You've seen Toronto, they're not playing well at all. I mean, the West is just so much better basketball than the East. You have to go through teams like San Antonio. You have to go through teams like Golden State. Even with Blake Griffin, if he decides to come back, they're somehow playing better without him. If everyone's healthy on the Clippers, I still don't think that they could threaten Golden State. They're one of the best teams I've seen in a while. So the Celtics.
If there is a player on the Celtics right now, okay, so when they had Pierce, it was, okay, let's team Pierce with Garnett and Ray Allen. If there's a guy that you want to stick around a team with two other, because Garnett was a Pierce was a borderline superstar. Ray Allen was, just a great three-point shooter. Garnett was the superstar coming into this situation.
Sure.
Who would you say is the guy that you would want to stick around with for two other stars to come in with?
Ideally, I would say
anybody?
no one.
No one? Okay.
Not really. I mean, they have Isaiah Thomas, who's a great piece, but the fact is he's 5'9". He's a good shooter, but he can't really drive to the basket. If I had to pick one person, I'd probably pick Marcus Smart, just because he has so much raw emotion and raw skills. If he could ever find a way to develop some kind of jump shot, and his defense is spectacular. So if there was one guy I'd pick, it would probably be Marcus Smart. But ideally, I'd pick no one. I just got the team potentially drafting on a free agent draft, something like that.
All right. Last thing before, one of the last things before we get out of here. Let's do some Pete versus Boston. Who would you want to go up against of the Boston Celtics in a free throw shooting competition that you think you could beat?
Amir Johnson, he's not very good. Marcus Smart's not good either, really. The only guy I wouldn't want to really go up against is Isaiah Thomas. I think I have a lot of confidence in my free throw shooting from, playing in elementary school.
Well, which reminds me, do you have a fix? I have one fix for which I don't think there's a complete fix, but for the Hacka whoever strategy, do you have a fix for that?
Not really. I mean, I think it's kind of like a cool little thing that teams can do. I know it bugs a lot of people. But, I mean, if you have a massive guy like Dwight Howard or even Shaq back in the day that can't shoot free throws, I think that it's, a fun little thing that can be exploited, and teams should do it. I mean, in my opinion, I know it's not really a popular thing, but I kind of like the whole Hacka, Jordan strategy.
I mean, it really brings some kind of a little bit of excitement to the end of games. Like, 'cause it's not really exciting to watch James Harden go 11 for 12 from the free throw line. However, it is exciting when he does miss a free throw. But it is exciting when a DeAndre Jordan, like, there's a lot of drama in a playoff game when a bad free throw shooter goes to the line. My fix for it, but I don't know how you really, like, I think every team gets 5 fouls that they can give out before half court throughout a game. And every foul that you commit, like, okay, like, every intentional foul that you commit before half, you get 5 intentional fouls before half court. And if you can't get back into the game, so be it. But every time after that, it's free throws on the ball. Do you think that's a fix, or do you think that matters?
Well, it would definitely deter people away from doing it. But, I mean, I guess you can make an argument against that if a team has a lot of confidence in their defense. They're going to hack DeAndre Jordan, hope that he misses, the 2 free throws, 1 free throw, whether it's 1-on-1, whatever. The thing is, and then, if they can play good defense, but I guess in the situation, if they're deciding to hack whoever the player is, they don't have a lot of confidence in their defense. So, I mean, it's a good fix in my opinion, yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll continue into Pete versus Boston. Pete, if you face, who would you want to face if you have a one-on-one in hockey? Penalty shot in hockey. Who are you facing in goal of any Boston Bruins goalie ever?
I guess I'd pick Tuukka Rask, actually, or maybe Tim Thomas, because, I mean, both the styles that they play, when they come out of the net, I think my awesome skating abilities, I could probably get right around them and, tuck it in.
Okay. Who do you take? Okay, if you're in a matchup versus, Brady's throwing, who's a wide receiver you think you could cover? I know you love Brady, where you think he can just drop a ball over any coverage at all. But there's been times where he's been fooled by, somebody that's a little, that's borderline a pro athlete. Say you're a borderline pro athlete. Who are you covering?
I think I got to go with Brandon LaFell, just because, I mean, I feel like I could probably keep up with him with speed. And then, Brady's not great at the deep ball. And I think Brandon LaFell could probably drop it. So, I mean, if I can provide some tight coverage, I like my chances.
Who do you think you could? You have the Boston Red Sox. Okay, first, what Boston Red Sox defense would you have behind you if you were pitching? Like, of all the years you've been watching the Red Sox, what specific? You don't have to say what like. Would you have like the 04, with Veritek, Millar, all them? Would you have them behind you? Who would you have behind you?
I think I'd have to go with Veritek. Veritek's probably one of the best catchers, defensive catchers at least. At first base, Mike Napoli, I mean, he's really underrated player. Second, Pedroia. Shortstop, Orlando Cabrera. Share with the 04 team. Third base, probably Mike Glow, probably one of my favorite players growing up. And in the outfield, I mean, I like the outfield that they have right now with Betts, Jackie Bradley Jr., and whoever, in right field. I guess Castillo right now. I don't have a lot of confidence in him, but see how this season goes.
Okay. And who would you have to pitch to where you'd be like, okay, with the Green Monster in play, I can get an out with this defense behind me?
Oh, man. I'm trying to think of one guy. I mean, maybe Hanley Ramirez if he's playing for the Dodgers. I like my chances against him. I was a pretty good pitcher back in the day, so I feel like if I could brush him off the plate, he might go hacking at something.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you just throw junk. Well, maybe you don't even throw junk. You just rely on location at that point where you're just like, okay, because if you rely too much on junk, then he's going to if you hang something, he's going to drive it over the Green Monster. But, yeah, I feel like as long as you got that defense, got to keep the ball down low in the zone and just hope for a ground ball.
Sure, yeah.
All right, Pete. Well, before we get out of here, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, the internets, your show that airs, and any other good stuff from BiasBostonSports.com?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, you can find me at BiasBostonSports.com. We got like 20 writers over there right now. So that's pretty good. You can get me on Twitter at Pete_BBS. We got a bunch of different accounts over there. One good thing that's happening is with the baseball season, we're going to get a couple of guys over from Barstool to hopefully come on to our the podcast that we run called The Report, talk a little bit of preseason, what we think might happen with some predictions for the Red Sox this season.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Pete, again, I've had you, Mike Dyer from Celtics Life, and Mark Van Heusen from Celtics Life and Lucid Sports Fan. I've had a lot of conversations about people who don't like Boston people. I haven't met one that I don't like yet. So you've kept the good name.
Wow. I'm honored.
Keep up the good work. I like your show, your interactive show here on. I guess it's on Google Hangout, but I watch on YouTube. Very good stuff, and keep up the good work at BiasBostonSports.com.
All right, thank you very much.
And we'll be right back here with a recorded interview with Jabari Davis of LakersNation.com here on the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com.
See, I want you to slow far away. I know you won't. Can't walk away from the things you say, the things you say. Yeah, the price you pay for love. Can't walk away from the things you say, the things you say. Yeah, the price you pay for love. No, no, no. Can't walk away from the things you say, the things you say. Yeah, the price you pay for love. Can't walk away from the things you say, the things you say. Yeah, the price you pay for love. Can't walk away.
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
You make me dizzy, running circles in my head. One of these days I'll chase you down.
Welcome back to the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com. I'd like to thank Pete Mikowski of BiasedBostonSports.com and Brian Keating of KOCO in Oklahoma City. And now I'm going to have a recorded interview with Jabari A. Davis of LakersNation.com. Keep in mind, we did the show Wednesday before the trade deadline, so we kind of guessed on stuff that would happen at the deadline. So this is like probably the worst time to play the interview, but we're going to play it anyway. It's a good interview. Listen, and I'll see you next. Actually, I'll see you Thursday with Johnny Molaris. I'll see you next Thursday in Chicago on the Johnny Bobo Show. Good night, folks.
Welcome back to the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com. I am joined here by the one, the only Jabari Davis of LakersNation.com. Jabari, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great, Bob. Thanks as always for having me on.
No problem. We're in the trade debt. When this airs, it'll be post-trade deadline, but we're heading to the trade deadline, which is exactly 24 hours away when we're talking here. What did you make of the Tobias Harris trade for Brandon Jennings and Ersan Ilyasova?
Well, I mean, if you're Detroit, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, well, no matter what, the deal makes sense. I like it for Detroit in particular because, look, you know, you're one game out in the loss column of the playoffs. Now, it's not going to make you a contending team this year, and I don't even know if ultimately Tobias Harris is going to be, that key or pivotal piece. But it at least makes you better, and it at least it could potentially put you over the hump and get you in there. It built, obviously, it's great for the fan base. Those Detroit Pistons fans have been pretty patient over these last 5-6 years or so. So I was happy for him. I like Tobias as a player. I'm interested in seeing what he's going to look like next to Drummond, and how obviously how Stan's going to be able to incorporate all of the pieces that he has now. But I really like it.
Yeah, I'm looking on it right now. Magic fans complaining about getting another guard. They don't have really an offensive-minded guard, and I think. They obviously need. I think they need to break up Peyton and Oladipo. I would prefer to get. If I'm them, I would probably prefer to go away from Peyton just because I think he's pretty limited as far as everything he can do. Kind of like a Rondo, and I like Jennings. He's not a long-term solution, but I think you got to break up that backcourt, and you need at least one offensive-minded piece in that backcourt.
Yeah, definitely. Not only a guy that can get his own shot, but a guy that can consistently create for others. And that's not a knock against Peyton because he does that. He pushes the meter. He gets the job done. But like you mentioned, he's limited. He simply is. Until he's able to not only extend his range to 3-point line, but be able to consistently knock down even the mid-range shot. It's always going to be a difficult struggle unless you just have some lights out shooters around him on the court. So I agree with you in terms of Orlando. I think, hey, I'm not sure what to expect out of Jennings. But I will say, moving forward, at least, the one thing I'll say is this. Moving forward, at least we had a move. At least there was something, because I don't know about you. More often than not, the trade deadline kind of stinks to me. The free agency's hit or miss in the summertime, but trade deadline usually, not too much happens. So at least there are some teams out there looking to actively improve themselves.
There's been a couple of years where it's been really good. Would have been like the year when Indiana was 5 minutes too late on picking up O.J. Mayo. And, there was some good trades that year. There's, usually John Salmons gets moved or Courtney Reed. But it's funny to me with the trade deadline, there's always these big names that are a bit, Dwight Howard. There's usually one big name or two big names that are being talked about. Nothing ever happens. Do you think anything happens with Dwight?
I never say never because you just don't know. I don't know if I necessarily expect the Clippers to move on Blake Griffin. I know that's been out there. I know that I shouldn't say I know. It certainly appears apparent that Houston's ready to move on from Dwight, or at least ready to shake some things up there. It's just a matter of will they find a taker midway through the year. That's really what And as much as I say I'm disappointed in the trade deadline most of the time, it actually makes sense. Unless you're adding a piece that is either going to put you into the playoffs or a piece that you believe can make you a title contender, oftentimes the offseason just simply makes the most sense in terms of these deals. So again, I never say never, but I don't necessarily anticipate Kevin Love moving. I don't necessarily anticipate seeing a blockbuster deal. I'd love to be wrong. You can have me back another time in order to say, hey, wait, look what took place. I'd love for some action to take place.
Are you surprised that a team like the Hawks, who's so into numbers and spending money wisely, I know this isn't really spending money because you're picking up a guy that's probably going to opt out, but picking up a guy like Dwight Howard, it kind of surprises me that they're in the hunt or trying to be in the hunt for Howard.
It doesn't surprise me because, one, Dwight has kind of shown that you just never know what to expect, so you don't know. I believe he's from that area originally, so who knows if he would ultimately decide to re-up with him. And if you're Atlanta, we just say we have to be honest about it. They don't get the big name free agent. They don't. And folks that are listening from Atlanta will say I'm exactly right on that. They kind of are like always the bridesmaid, never the bride when it comes to a lot of those negotiations. So if you have an opportunity to go to pull the trigger on a deal that could bring in at least a big name and impact player on the defensive end, a guy that would obviously would probably resonate with the fan base there. I think you have to pull the trigger, especially when you consider, look, they're 31-24 right now. They're fourth in the East. They're tied with the Heat. There's kind of a log jam. From three on down, basically 3 through 12. All within like 5-6 games in the loss column. So if you're them, why not go for it?
One thing I kind of thought about while you were talking was when Howard was at his best, and when he was, his teams were most successful was when he was in Orlando, and he was just surrounded by, it was him, and then they surrounded him with 4 shooters on the perimeter, like Rashard Lewis, who was really good with Howard. You look at like Jameer Nelson, who was good with Howard. Courtney Lee at times, but like Atlanta has that. They could do that with Millsap and Korver, and I know Korver's taking a step back, but that might be actually a good fit and might work out for them.
You're 100% right. I apologize. I didn't mean to jump you. I was excited once you mentioned that, because that's a great point. The 4 out, 1 in is exactly what you want. If you're gonna make Howard your centerpiece, you have to just go ahead and do it. You know, whether you believe that whether you believe he's the man or the quote unquote has the killer instinct or can lead, I don't care about all that. If you're going to make him your guy, Atlanta is actually a much better fit, in my honest opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually a group that, you know, could get back, like, as Atlanta is right now, I don't see them getting back to the conference finals. I mean, it's possible, but I think that would be a recipe for success. And, you know, say what you will about Dwight and his, you know, lack of urgency. You know, Houston's just a mess, and he hasn't fit in well there. I just think that, you know, an Atlanta type of thing would be perfect for him. Looking around in other trades that could possibly go down, what do you think that Cleveland should do, or do you think Cleveland should just stand pat?
I mean, it's tough. Again, so much movement, so many moving parts. You know, you get rid of Blatt, you know, just before the All-Star break. I'm not saying that they shouldn't, tinker and look to add pieces. Like, if a deal is out there that for a guy that can bring, that can help the team, a guy that could, play some center minutes because Mozgov hasn't been all that great this year. Like that, there's definitely been a drop off at that position. Then you have to take a look at it. But at the same time, say they do swing a huge deal and they move Kevin Love and they bring in other pieces. What if it doesn't work? Then you know what I mean? Like again, and I know as a GM you can't necessarily or you shouldn't necessarily operate or fully operate in the fear of, oh, what if the move doesn't work? But all I'm saying is you got an awful lot riding on this. I almost feel like once they parted ways with Blatt, they kind of decided, okay, we're going to see what the best we can do with this group with Lou, and then reassess in the summer. I could be wrong, but that's just kind of how it feels, at least.
Do you feel with the Cavs that they're getting into the same? Obviously they spent money on Love, made a trade for Love, spent money on Kyrie. Mm-hmm. But do you think they're getting kind of into the same pitfalls that got them into trouble the first time around with LeBron, where they're spending money but not really wisely, they're making trades but not really thinking it through, and Love made sense at the time, but do you feel like they're kind of getting like it felt like this offseason they just signed Love to sign him, and they were like, hey, let's just sign him. We'll try to make this work. And I get that mentality, but they didn't really think it through with how much money they spent on him, and I don't really think they thought it through with how much money they spent on Tristan Thompson either. What is your take on Cleveland right now?
I'm really I don't want to say I'm confused by what they're doing, but you probably kind of hit it on the head in terms of the difficult thing is that, look, you have LeBron James, you want to make him happy, of course. You know what I mean? If you bring him in, you are going all in. It's not for the future. It's not for 4 years down the road. It's for the here and now. So even though I honestly, and I'm not just being a Monday morning quarterback here, even though I honestly did not like the Love deal to begin with, I understood it because it said like, hey, look, we're coming for it. We want it right now. That said, I didn't understand last summer. I understood, wanting to re-sign Love, but if, giving Love $100+ million and then giving, ultimately giving Tristan Thompson, a huge deal as well, when even though they play different types of, different styles of game, they play the same position, and neither one of them is really flexible enough or has shown, enough flexibility, to kind of, play alongside one another and still be effective and still have an effective unit out there. For any extended period of time. that just didn't make all that much sense to me. But who knows? Maybe they went into the deal thinking, hey, we can showcase Kevin Love if ultimately it doesn't work and we can move him at the deadline. Maybe that's the case. Or maybe they thought we could try it again this 1 year, and in the off season, which I could see taking place, we can then try to move him move him to a franchise like Boston or one of those other teams that is looking for a marquee guy that they can kind of center a team around or center an offense around. Excuse me. But it really is a tough situation when you're bringing LeBron back in. Even though you knew in the first go round there was probably a little bit too much of just do anything to make him happy. Given how they did in the aftermath, you had to kind of know it was going to be anything. I don't want to say anything he wanted, but pretty much anything that his people wanted, you're going to have to you're going to kind of have to bend to it.
Mm-hmm. Looking in the East, do you obviously it's a lot better than it has been in the past 3-4 years. But this year, do you think the Bulls need to make a move? Do you think the Bulls are just, it's going to take another year to kind of get into Hoiberg's system with moves in the off season? What's with the Bulls right now? And do you see any, do you think people are buying too much stock into the Celtics at all?
I don't. Okay, well, that's definitely a two-part. The Celtics thing I'll address quickly. I don't think they're buying too much stock in it. I just think that the Celtics are like the better team of kind of that pack. You know what I mean? And certainly playing the best at this time. But in terms of the Bulls, I don't know. Look, how long is Jimmy Butler out?
I think it was 5 weeks.
He's out 5 weeks. That's going to put him pretty close. As they currently stand, they're only a game. They're only 2 games up of the Pistons in the loss column. If they have any desire whatsoever to make these playoffs or to at least solidify themselves, I don't necessarily think a move would be the worst of ideas in order to get a little bit more firepower in there, get a guy another consistent scorer in there. Man, it's just really tough because it really just you know how it is. It ultimately comes down to what you're prioritizing. Are you prioritizing the future or you're prioritizing the here and now? It would seem that with Derrick Rose still on the team and with Pau Gasol still on the team, that they're going for the here and now. So by that thought process, you would think that they'd go out and potentially at least explore moves. Who knows what they could actually get done, but at least explore something that could potentially get them back into that upper epsilon in the Eastern Conference. Because right now they're not. They're a fringe team, and no disrespect to Bulls fans, but right now that's where they stand.
It amuses me a little bit with the Bulls, the one thing that is nice about this era with the Bulls is LeBron James. They get to know what it felt like in the '90s when Jordan would ruin everybody's hopes and dreams, with LeBron ruining their hopes and dreams every year. But as far as the Bulls actually go, their front office. They got rid of Thibodeau basically because, he wasn't willing to, sit guys and rest guys. Like he played he played a short bench at times and for most of the season, played guys 35, 40 minutes a night. Uh-huh. And, he ground down Joakim Noah. And I mean, that's why Noah's not the same this year as he was 2 years ago, is because of all those minutes he logged. Uh-huh. But now, they've taken a massive step back in the regular season. But I don't necessarily think that they're, the way they played, it was kind of like Memphis, where you knew they were going to get to at least a conference finals or semis. They were going to be fine. Maybe they wouldn't quite get over the hump of a Spurs or a Thunder or Cavs, But at least they had that, grinded out mentality. This team just doesn't have that. And I don't think it bodes well for if they get into the playoffs, now or long term. Do you?
No, not at all. I mean, look, the big difference to me is they don't play defense like they used to. Okay, I don't, that's not a knock against Hoiberg. That's not a, that it's more of just praise, for Thibodeau and that wonderful system that he had, especially on the defensive side. Currently they're actually giving up more points than they score on average, which obviously that's not going to win. They're 11-15 on the road. The first thing that pointed out to me was that they were 11-15 on the road. It wasn't like they were absolute world beaters back in the day, but you wouldn't see, like you're not a serious team when you're pretty much not going to be a serious team if you can't at least go 500 on the road. And if you're giving up more points than you score on a nightly basis, I mean, there's no wonder that you're where you are. You're 3-7 in their last 10, and they lost 4 in a row. It's tough. It is really tough. Going back to your question earlier, if I were Chicago looking at it like this, I would make a move. I would make a move to either bolster the roster or clear all of it out. Clear it on out.
Looking at the Clippers right now, they're not going to win the finals. They're probably not going to go to the conference finals, but do you still think people are kind of sleeping on them? Like, I think they could give they're not going to beat the Warriors, but they could give the Warriors a series. It's all a matter of if they get matched up with Memphis, if they're going to be mentally tough enough to get past them. But do you think people are sleeping a little bit on the Clippers, depending on matchups in the playoffs?
Yeah, honestly, I don't. I hear that argument, and I hear that narrative at least out here often. Like, hey, people hating on the Clippers. No, they're good. The Clippers are good. The Clippers kind of are what we thought they were, and I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna steal that phrase. Like, they're good. They can run it up. They're exciting. It's certainly an intriguing brand of basketball to watch. But ultimately, it kind of comes out. Of course, matchups are going to be key, and I would love to see them match up with the Warriors. I don't think they beat them, but I'd love to see it at least. I'd love to see the Warriors at least challenged, especially if the Clippers end up being their best matchup. But when I look at the Clippers, I look do I think they could beat the Spurs? Yeah, I do. If everything worked out well and Doc isn't, taken behind the woodshed by Popovich, they could compete in that series. Do I think they could beat the Thunder? Probably not. You're right, Matt. It is according to matchups. I would say the Clippers have, a good shot at the second round, and if everything, kind of worked out well, possibly the conference finals. But at the same time, I could also see them going out in the first round. And that's not a knock. That's just a matter of, against certain teams, they just don't match up well.
What do you think the chances are that the Golden State Warriors win 90 games with their regular season win total and their postseason win total?
Okay, 90. So what would that take? 74 in the regular season?
Yeah.
And obviously, going ahead and completing it and winning the title?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real. There's a good chance. Like, at the beginning of the year, I was saying, like, hey, come on, it's very early. It's 30-2, it's early. And obviously before that, they're 48-4. Okay, they would. I don't have the math in front of me. Is that it's somewhere between 25 and 27 games, right around there? How many is that? Is that how many is left?
52. They have 30 games left.
They have 30 games left. Thank you. One of us was a math major, not me. No. Okay. So yeah, look, they got 30 games left. Could you see them? Could you see them only losing another 4? I could.
I mean, they're gonna have to face the Spurs again.
Yeah.
But the thing with the Spurs, it's like, they beat them by 30. However, that's not going to happen again. But we know Popovich. He's gonna. There's games where he basically uses it as a scouting report.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows? Even with Duncan, if he was in the lineup for a game against the Warriors, who knows how effective him being in the lineup really, how much of a difference it really makes.
Yeah.
But looking at the Warriors, they're on a mission, and it's hard for me to see. It's a team on a mission, and it's a really good. It's all three of their stars are motivated and firing on all cylinders, and they're on the same page. It would take something like one of their players to hook up with somebody else's wife.
Wow.
Like I say that jokingly, but it would take something like that for them to completely implode, I think.
Yeah, so since they don't have any Miss Cecilia girls on their team that we know of, hopefully that won't take place. No, to your point, and I know that some folks are already tired of it. They're tired of like hearing about how good the Warriors are. I've heard it amongst the Lakers fan base. I see it on Twitter. Look, it is what it is. Whether your team is on top or your team is on bottom, sometimes you have to just acknowledge when something is great. And these Warriors are a great team. It wasn't, that wasn't just a flash in the pan last year. I'm not saying they're going to dominate for the next 10 years or so. Who knows, what takes place in free agency this summer. We'll get to that, I'm sure, later this summer. But this is a team this is the top right now. Lakers fans, when you enjoyed those Kobe teams, the Kobe and Powell and Lamar teams, and you were on top, you enjoyed that. Same thing with the Shaq and Kobe teams. You enjoyed that. You just got to, you have to respect. You kind of have to, it's a game recognized game situation. And the Warriors, whether they are, like I said, whether they are, here to stay for the next 10 years, right now, that's the top.
Yeah, I mean the Nash Suns were a lot of fun, but it wasn't it wasn't to this level where they were just being, they would have 60-win seasons. They were never on pace, never on pace or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, they can play any style. Mm-hmm. They always dictate the pace of the game, whatever pace they want. It doesn't matter who they're playing; they can dictate it. The one thing, what would you do against the Spurs? Would you just continue to go, go Draymond as a 5, or play small ball against everybody, or would you mix it up against? Do you think there's a certain team in the West or East that can force them to play forces them to play a style that they wouldn't want to play?
Honestly, not on a consistent basis, but as you mentioned with the lead-in, that's what makes them so deadly. That's exactly what makes them so dangerous. Look, the Spurs, at least for a game, like in a proverbial series, a hypothetical series, at least for a game, Popovich is going to come up with some type of wrinkle, to take advantage of their advantages. You know what I'm saying? But the one thing that one of the things that I'm going to give Steve Kerr a ton of credit for is the guy knows how to adjust. The guy has definitely gotten to the point where, as you said, they can play big, they can play small, they can play the intermediate game, they can play, they can play, going to the lane and, going into the key and probing and kicking. They can play, whip the ball around. Like, literally, they don't have any weaknesses. Again, I know folks are tired of hearing it. It just is what it is. I'm simply acknowledging how great they are. To fully answer your question, no, I don't think another team out there can make them play a different style. Your best bet is make them adjust at times, and then do your best to beat them at what they do. You know what I'm saying? Beat them at what they do, and at the other times, it's gonna, if healthy, Golden State's gonna be a tough out.
Other than the guys on his team, and I feel like veterans, veterans in the NBA, and retired players don't really like Steph. I get that feeling that
really
there's kind of a dislike for him. What do you think? It's the people think he was born with a silver. Well, I mean, not that he, he was born to a father that played in the NBA, so he was, they had money growing up. Do you think that's it, or what do you think it is that the people older than Steph just don't like about him?
That's interesting, Bob. I'm not going to lie to you. I have not noticed that. Like, I really haven't. I haven't noticed that, vets and former players don't like him. I know that Charles Barkley's, he opened his mouth about it, but like Chuck says everything about anyone. Literally everything about anyone.
Well, yeah, but my thing is, like, they had that players vote for the Players' Choice Awards or whatever it was, and voted for James Harden, and there was a lot of talk last offseason that Harden should have won MVP from players, more so than media and whatnot. And I get the feeling that he's not well liked by a lot of his fellow players.
Well, okay. So then you also have to take into consideration the older generation players. They also played in the league at a different time, and what Steph symbolizes to some people is that progress, that like change from the old guard. Whereas, like me, I appreciate. Look, I make no bones about it. I love, I appreciate the style of play right now, just like I liked the style of play in the '90s, and I appreciate the style of play. I still think the 1980s are the greatest era of NBA basketball, ever. Call that what you want to call it. That said, it's easier for me because I'm not one of those guys that were in the 80s, that played in the 90s, to then now all of a sudden see like, look, this is where the league is. So like I could see it being the case with some people, but ultimately, if the guy continues to do it, regardless of whether you think that, and I'm speaking generally, not speaking you, but regardless of whether you think like the league should be a all 3-point team and firing from half court or just inside half court, it doesn't matter if it's working. This is where we are now. So like all of those folks that are still holding on to it, they'll eventually either have to get over it, or they'll just end up looking kind of foolish, like the old guy yelling at yelling at progress.
A couple more questions before I let you go.
Gotcha.
Kevin Durant, what do you think has the most likelihood? Durant and Westbrook team up together in LA. Durant goes to Golden State. Westbrook just stays in Oklahoma City and makes that his team, or they both stay together in Oklahoma City.
It's such a tough one because this is obviously just total speculation. Nobody outside of like them knows, what's weighing on their hearts. But if I'm guessing, honestly, I think Durant probably considers looks around at free agency, looks at what scenarios are out there. Okay, look, I'll say this: if the Golden State scenario actually presented itself, like I'm talking about, really did take place, like they were able to clear out enough space in order to make room for him. Of course, if I'm Kevin Durant, I would it would be pretty tough to hold that to pass on that. But since that might not take place, since it's much easier said than done. Like when people go like, oh, all they have to do is look, that's a lot. You know what I mean? They got to move. You got to kind of move mountains in order to make it happen. Not saying it's impossible, just saying it's not necessarily as likely. But since that might not take place, if I'm Kevin Durant, while it may be nostalgic to think about playing in DC, I wouldn't go there. Me personally, as Jabari Davis, of course, I'd love to see him here in purple and gold. That would be incredible to see, to see the next generation already in existence right here in Los Angeles without having to have quite as much of a transition period. You know what I mean? But ultimately, I could honestly see him doing a 1-year deal, sticking in OKC in order to see what Russ was going to do. Now, if you're asking me, I honestly think that Russ is coming to Los Angeles. I could be 100% wrong, but that's the feeling that I get because I think that, like, while he loves playing in OKC, and it's not a matter of like, OKC's too small. It's just that I think Russ needs a grand stage, and I'm not in order to be famous, just in order to be Russ. So part of me feels like he's either ultimately one day going to end up in Los Angeles or New York or one of those big markets, only because, unlike, what we presumed about NBA players in the past, where like they all wanted to play in the big markets, I do think that there are still some that remain, and I think Russ is one of them.
Yeah, I think Russ needs a big market for Russ to get, his clothing line and, That's just who he is, and that's fine.
Modeling opportunities, believe me, this is going to sound blasphemous. If I had to choose one, while I say that Kevin Durant is probably, second or third best in the league, I might choose Russ only because, like, when I think about the guy that is, kind of embodies, I don't want to say what Kobe, was, but like that type of mentality. Russ is that guy, man. Like, he just is for me.
But I feel like, I agree with you. I think his personality would fit good for the Lakers.
Yeah.
And they need that type of mentality. Durant, I've talked to a guy that covers the Thunder, and after talking to him, I kind of feel like, Westbrook would probably be best off going to L.A. rather than New York.
Yeah.
Because the media is bad in LA, but it's not New York where, he doesn't handle the media well in OKC.
No.
But I think he would be okay though. There'd just be a lot more people. But and then Durant, I feel like he needs to go to if he's going to leave, he needs to go to a place, and I think he probably knows this, where he needs to be protected. Like, he is an OKC by, for the most part, he's protected as far as media goes.
Same way Dwight was in Orlando, and then didn't realize how good he had it until he was no longer there. No, for sure. Certain players, their personalities just work well in certain markets, and that's not to say that Durant couldn't work well here. Because look, hey, I think folks would appreciate what he brought to the table. It just personality wise, Russ probably fits a little bit better here. While I agree with your point. KD, it's not ever. I don't even want to say he needs to be protected. He probably just doesn't want. He doesn't. You know what he does? He doesn't suffer fools. You know what I mean? So he's not. While he's soft spoken and everything, and we all thought like, oh, hey, mild mannered Kevin. He's representing the Lord and everything. He's still a killer. And he's still not trying to play around with you. You know what I mean? So, yeah, if I were him, honestly, if I were Durant, I would consider, sticking with a smaller market or a market that will, kind of have his best interest in mind. Certainly not a New York. Certainly not, one of those types of markets. But, on the flip side, like I said, Westbrook, I think he could make it.
Well, on that note, Jabari, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, the internet's podcast, all that good stuff?
Absolutely. Again, thanks for having me, Bob. I know I rambled a little bit today, but hey, it's the All-Star break, and I'm just ready for action again. You can catch me on Twitter, Jabari Davis NBA. Pretty simple. Whether you follow or not, if you interact with me, I'll interact with you. If you're talking about basketball, I don't care what the team is, even though I'm currently covering the Lakers. Prior to this year, I covered the entire league. I'm one of those guys that even though I grew up in Los Angeles, I truly love the game of basketball. So shoot at me. I would the show, you can catch it on iTunes. It's Lakers Nation Podcast. It's the actual show for the site, as well as on YouTube. And that's pretty much it. Catch me on Twitter or on iTunes, and go from there.
Awesome. Well, on that note, we will be right back here on the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com with Brian Keating.